It's that timeless pursuit of when art merges with the artist, where we put ourselves out there, find that moment of motivation, and ride the momentum, and then love the very art we create. These are all deeply linked to the soul of who we are. Some say you might be able to measure that, but perhaps it is a blind pursuit. Hello, everybody. Welcome to 21 Grams. Yes, I'm real excited because I have one of my favorite humans on the planet next to me, and somebody who I've known a very long time. I can't believe we've known each other quite a bit of time.
Pretty long, 2015, 20, somewhere around there.
Yeah. But this is the wonderful, awesome CL Cannon, Miss Courtney Cannon. Tell everybody, for the one person that might be out there who doesn't know who you are, tell everybody a little bit about yourself for me.
I am Courtney Cannon, aka CL Cannon. I write primarily fantasy and sci-fi, especially YA fantasy and sci-fi, with a speciality in fairy tale retellings most of the time. I also do a lot of things with time travel, just kind of, I don't even realize how much I do with time travel until I put all my stuff together. I do a lot of stuff on Go Indie Now, like the Indie Connection every week here on Go Indie Now. And then I also do the monthly marketing tip. So that's me.
Hello to Anita. You know, thanks to the genius that I possess in putting awesome people on my shows, I learned something new about the people I know for a very long time, and that happened last week when you appeared on First Time for Everything with Juliet. She's such an awesome interviewer, and I know the subject matter of what she's talking about, but I never knew that you dabbled or started in romance and really didn't like it.
No, I mean, I've never been really a romance person. I started there because that's kind of I do like cutesy romance, like non-spiced romance, and like I don't know, like Hallmark movie sort of romance. Sometimes I kind of have like this little love for that as a reader, and so that's where I started out. But I'm really a big fan of fantasy, and that's what I always wanted to write. So that's where I went with it.
Was it a matter of confidence, or was it just a matter of you wanted to be a writer that got seen, so you thought romance might be the avenue for that, or was it a matter of confidence, you just weren't prepared yet to write fantasy and science fiction?
It was really just a matter of circumstance because I saw the call for it, and my friend Janae, how I got started in this business is my friend Janae, who I met through Harry Potter, because I've obviously big in fandom for years and years and years, and that's where I knew a lot of people. And she put out her first book, which was romance, and she needed someone to edit it, and she needed someone to make her a cover, and she kept going to Fiverr and couldn't find anybody that was reliable. And I had already been doing some of those things through fan fiction, or I've been doing websites and graphic design for years. So I was like, well, let me help you out. And so I did that. And then she kind of put me through to a few people in the industry. And after she was successful, and like she wrote like erotica and things. I don't write any of that stuff, but she had those connections in the romance industry. And I saw that open call through them. And I thought, well, this is something that I could probably, write a short story for. And it kind of evolved from that. And then everything after that, pretty much, except for with the exception of Chasing Fireflies, which also has Janae in it. I was just kind of like an amalgamation of all of my friends that I had met through her. But with the exception of those two short stories, everything else I've done has been either fantasy or sci-fi. So.
Which is ironic, again, because that kicked off the whole experience for Fiction Atlas Press and anthologies.
Yes. Yeah. So thank you, Janae, because that's the reason why I've got all of this.
You mentioned that you're big into fairy tale retellings, and part of a lot of fairy tales is the romantic element. Is there something to be said for subverting that? Is that, I mean, I think part of fairy tale retellings, the beauty of it is the subversion, right? Is to try and subvert what has already existed, because we all know the story that existed,
Yes.
but to change it and make it uniquely different, maybe even darker or weirder or whatever the concept might be, it is kind of an aim for those kind of retellings, right? So, doing a fairy tale retelling, do you find yourself kind of spitfiring on that not so much love for romance aspect?
Actually, I see. I love that's the thing. I do love romance, like as far
I
as shipping goes. I love putting characters together, and I love how characters relate to each other and how they meet and things like that. I'm just not more of a contemporary romance person. So really, I always do have a romantic element in everything that I write. But also, I do like to subvert the things in the fairy tale retellings, mostly because a lot of the old fairy tales are either really disturbing or they are the
there
woman
is
does
that
nothing.
too.
They are more like a set piece than they are an active character in their own story. So I like being able to give those women in those stories more things to do, let them in on more on the action, like my Sleeping Beauty retelling, and that she is going to be the one that's going up against the fairy instead of the prince. So, I like to flip it on its head, but just in a different way, and keeping the romance, but maybe making the romance a little bit different than it was in the original tale.
A lot of fairy tale retellings. Gosh, tongue tied there. A lot of that also comes from the aspect of how the female has been treated in fairy tales in a lot of these respects, right?
Yes.
Changing the narrative so that there's a stronger female presence, or that there's a usage of what is more modern, a modern understanding of the roles of humans these days, right? And so
Right.
I think there's a lot of that too to it. Is that some an element that's also important to you? Is kind of giving the female voice a stronger backbone in a lot of these.
Yeah, I think that is one of the main things that draw me to fairy tales in general. And I know you don't like Lord of the Rings per se, but if we go back to Lord of the Rings, like Eowyn was one of my favorite characters. Arwen is also, okay, she's not really that much in the books, but Eowyn was the perfect character that was underestimated, and then she's the one that pretty much saves the day, pretty
Mhm.
much, and kills the Witch King. So I love doing things like that, things that are unexpected, and giving women power where they might be denied in other stories.
One of my favorite parts of the entire series, right there. So yeah, I would agree with you on Erwin, but uh, it's funny too because Tolkien, they asked Tolkien a lot about that character in the few interviews he had done, and he's very dismissive of the idea of it. He's like, well, whatever. I just needed another soldier, basically, which just again makes me just cringe. But
Yeah.
that's the old adage, right? The old guard from a long time ago when it comes to fantasy. I mean, fantasy's evolved so much, right?
It really has, yeah.
Are you excited about where it's going, or do you feel like there's a time and place for kind of the reciprocal nature of fantasy elements, or do you like that it's kind of getting this romantic tinge? I mean, romantasy obviously being one of the hugest things out there right now.
I I like that it's reaching more people, and I like that more people are reading. It is bringing more people into reading that maybe not would not have read so many things in the past, and it's making people cross genres more. So that is good. I'm not particularly what you would call a romantasy fan, because a lot of romantasy readers are like spice readers. I'm not, but
Mhm.
I do enjoy the meet cute and all of those elements that you see in romance being put into fantasy. And if it helps fantasy reach more readers and they'll go on and read some more classic fantasy, that's pretty cool too.
I find it kind of ironic that even nowadays fantasy is polarizing because you have Neil Gaiman going through a lot of personal stuff. You have J.K. Rowling going through a lot of personal stuff. But then you also have the just vitriol for like a Sarah J. Maas, who just people want to love to hate her. Just kind of like what Tolkien was. Tolkien was somebody who you wanted to love to hate. And it's kind of even back then. And now it's even more so with the attention span of human beings because nobody will sit through 600 pages of craziness. But that's another story. But it's funny how even when there is an evolution in the fantasy realm, the vitriol and the just everything about it is kind of similar in a lot of respects.
I mean, it's the internet, and that's like the best thing that you can say about it is that they're going to complain about something in every there's something to complain about everything. Everybody has things that they want to talk about on the internet and complain about, and that's where they choose to do it. So it doesn't surprise me that there's a lot of discourse about things like that. But I'm just happy to read a lot of books every year.
Do you find it funny though that fantasy is one of those genres that was even before the internet getting that kind of discourse that in it a lot? I mean, there's always been fandom when it comes to like Star Wars, which I know is not fantasy, but as close to a fantasy element as you could possibly get. Lord of the Rings has always had that weird fandom to it as well.
I think a lot of times people, especially the scholarly people, would say, those were just for geeky people or for nerdy people or for people who are too obsessed or, they would other people who like those genres. And so it is kind of nice that more people are starting to accept those genres as like actual literary works, because a lot of times, especially like fantasy and sci-fi, they're like, they get, I want to say they don't have the prestige, and especially academically, as other genres like literary fiction might. So, I mean, like I said, I'm just happy people are reading. We need more people to read.
So, where do you tend to lean in what you write? Are you more of the fairy tale, fantastical fantasy author, or are you more of the interesting, world building, theologist in how you write?
Almost everything I write is very character driven. So it usually depends on what the characters are telling me, what I feel they would do. Sometimes I have a lot of world building. There's a couple series that I'm doing that do have like a whole, I'm going to have to figure out what religion people are going to be using, and the history of this ancient library that it's like cursed. It's one of my short stories I'm turning into something larger. And so that one's going to have lots of extensive world building. And then there's some things that are just vibes. they're just vibes and two characters closely going back and forth, and then me building things around that. So it just really depends on what I'm writing at the time, I guess. I don't really have a set thing.
Throw in some magic and some dragons and some swords, and you're off, right?
Yeah. And some high stakes also.
Yes. There you go. Obviously, yeah. I mean, you know what it takes to be a good storyteller, and you follow a lot of incredible. You have incredible fandoms yourself, right?
Oh, thank you.
And that's kind of where I was going with asking the questions beforehand, because I think you have a unique understanding of maybe even the empathetic aspect of fandom, as opposed to what we would all look at as toxic. Is there true misunderstandings within the fandoms that you kind of gravitate towards?
There is a lot of things that I don't condone in fandom that I have gotten into, and I do feel like as the internet has grown and as we get more access to people, there has been worse fighting and people being bullied, actors being bullied, writers being bullied, and things like that. But there are also a lot of community going on that is more accepting. Sometimes there's lots more places that you can go and ask questions, get help, So it's just like a balance, I guess. I don't know how to really answer that question.
Well, look, let me piggyback on what you just said a little bit and talk about, you know, are when you look at, has your fandom evolved over time? Have you looked at things a little bit more because of, being a mother or being somebody in the business, being in the industry, or or your political views, which you don't have to. I'm not asking you to get into how you believe, but have those all skewed your fandoms over time, or do you feel like your fandom is rooted in something deeper than that transcends that?
All of that really has, if and I don't care to discuss I don't want to make the whole thing about politics, but you can look on anything that I'm on and see what my politics are. I'm very
Well,
open.
yeah, and I know you, so
But
I don't want to do that. I don't mean to do that. I
yeah,
apologize. I'm not trying to call that out. I just want.
yeah,
I'm
no,
curious
fine.
more about the fandom aspect of how it roots for you.
Yeah. So like you said, with that, the politics does do a thing. Like, was a huge Harry Potter fan. I'm finding myself, I can't really stand J.K. Rowling anymore. I've stopped. I haven't bought anything Harry Potter related in years. I've started selling off all of my stuff, which I had quite a collection. So I'm getting rid of it gradually, just because, and it's not just because of all the things she said. It's just because the love of it kind of died after a while. And even though I found a lot of community and even started most of my writing business because of a person I knew through Harry Potter, it's kind of just killed it for me. But then there's also other fandoms where I have found, better understanding and things, and gotten more ideas or gotten more friends. And I don't know how to separate the art from the artist in some of those scenarios. And so that toxicity does leak into the fandom and kind of kill some things that I've loved since my childhood. But
Yeah,
what do you do?
yeah, yeah, and some of it, and you can't dismiss all of it, right?
Right.
There's a certain something that was magical about it for you that connected you to certain things.
Yes,
And Anita says a magic solves a lot of problems and plot holes. Yes, we.
it does. Yes.
Um, but also, it's interesting from knowing who you are. You're the marketing guru as far as I'm concerned, and a lot of people would agree with me. Does it change the way you market? Do you feel like there's something marketing wise that has to evolve if you're going to be a part of a fandom?
I think it does have some sway on how I market. And like you were saying before about understanding, like I am a lot more understanding of, like, before I'd be like, why is that book delayed? Or why is this, why did they make this printing mistake or whatever? But once you get in the industry and you realize all the moving parts that go into something, then you have a little more empathy for all the people going through that.
Yeah,
For example, Cassandra Clare had a Kickstarter, and it famously did not do, I mean, it did well monetarily, but the management of it has been really kind of all up in the air. There's been lots of delays, lots of things that were just not ran as well as indies are actually running them because they're new to the platform. So it's kind of crazy to see the difference when they have like a marketing firm working for them that is new to Kickstarter. And then there's these indies that have been working on Kickstarter for a couple years now, and they got it like that. They know exactly what they're doing. They could probably have helped that marketing person a little bit, but it does, like I said, give you more empathy. I'm a lot more likely to be like, oh, you couldn't get that done in time. Oh, that's okay, as long as it gets here eventually. I mean, if it's extreme circumstances, obviously I might be a little bit miffed, but for the most part, you become a lot more empathetic to people having problems or running into things, because publishing is so unpredictable. It's not just you don't just wave a magic wand and it all gets done magically. There's a lot of moving parts. So.
the last time we spoke, we talked about how conventions were so important. Conventions of, I'm not talking about like conventions where you go and talk to people. I'm talking about the conventions, the fundamentals of marketing, having a newsletter, having a website, and that's part of the key mistakes you see young marketing and independents make. A lot of indies make those mistakes and not pay attention to those things when they're super important. Is there something unconventional you feel like is being swept under the rug or starting to come to light for you as a marketer that you see people not paying attention to?
Um, I feel like sometimes people are getting, I don't know if this really counts as that, but I feel like people are getting less personal with the way that they market. They're using a lot more kind of spammy tactics, and they're doing a lot more things and seeing dollar signs and not making real human connections with people. And if anybody has watched any of my marketing tips, the biggest thing you can do in marketing is to make a human connection with someone else and have them remember you, and that usually leads to a good relationship, and usually they will buy something for you or try to support you if they can't buy something from you. But I'm seeing lots and lots more people trying to make quick money and not building those relationships. Mm-hmm. But that's about the only thing I can think of at the moment.
And going back to the word convention, and the last time we spoke, you had just attended the first time the convention in DC, and now you've been there a second time. Mm-hmm. What are you learning about in-person connections and conventions that you're liking as far as a marketer goes?
I think a lot of conventions come down to how well they are organized, and knowing the organizers, making sure that they are doing a good job, that they've been vetted. I've seen, I don't know how many conventions just in the last year or two that have just been train wrecks, and people have had to be refunded, or they've lost their money, or they got to the space and their convention wasn't even there. There's been lots of crazy things. And that's one of the reasons that I love Imaginarium so much. It is ran by two Black women who are trying to make it as diverse and as wonderful as possible. And it is wonderful not only for the authors, but also for the readers. It is an experience, and they work really hard to make it an experience and to get really famous authors there, but also to give little indie authors a chance. So I think that's one of the biggest things I would advise is when you're trying to seek out a convention, is making sure that their reputation is good, and then find you some buddies. Figure out who's going to go and make a plan, and figure out where they're staying. Well, don't stalk them, but figure out, if they're going to be staying somewhere close to you, if you can maybe meet up beforehand, go out to dinner, make those connections that way, because then you can maybe help market each other later through your newsletters, or just find lifelong friendships. I found a lot of people that I knew before, but once I got to meet them actually at the convention, I was like, oh, you're gonna be my bestie now forever, because you're so nice. And because a lot of times, especially for me, I deal with a lot of authors every day online, and a lot of times I don't see their face. They are that little Facebook icon for me for a long time, and then I got to see some of them in person. They're like, oh, you're Courtney? I'm like, yeah, that's me. And oh, I remember you from this. And it's just really nice, just not even from a marketing perspective, just on a human aspect, to be able to put that face and their mannerisms and everything behind that little photo that you see every day. So
yeah, I agree. I love, the one thing I love about conventions is I run into somebody that I've known online forever, and because I do video, it's not as stark a wow revelation, or I mean, there's sometimes when I find people are a lot taller or a lot shorter than that they look on camera, but otherwise, that's probably the only stark realization I ever come to with another person. Yeah. But it's always, but having, it's just so different. There's just this weird ethereal, just like three-dimensional aspect to it that is just so incredibly powerful. And it's amazing to me that even all these years, having, I meet one or two new people a year from this experience, and having that moments with them is just so different than anything else we've ever done together. It's kind of interesting.
Yeah.
I look forward to the day that happens between us.
Yes.
But yeah, I mean, it's very weird. It's just because, I mean, for all extents and purposes, you and I see each other pretty much once a week, every week, yeah. You and I, so it's like, it's just weird. Right. And but still, it's not the same thing. It's very interesting to me. I don't know if you've had that experience or not,
I
but
really have. It's there's just like this weird energy that it's just you. It just makes you really happy when you finally do meet them.
you know, I'm curious too. Part of if I may disclose a little bit of you know, sausage making here, for lack of a better term. Part of the hiatus that you're taking with us this year for Indie Connection was part born from your experience at Emporium, in that you want to kind of uh, you discovered, I think, something that's very fundamental in marketing that I think a lot of people dismiss, especially if they go to the same convention over and over again, and that's you really need to have something new to offer people when you go there, right? And
Mhm.
so wanting to write something new and put something new out there, uh, how important have you discovered that to be part of who you are as an author as much as anything?
I think it is really important to keep giving people new things because there's only I mean they can only see the same things so many times and they're either going to buy them or they're not. Very rarely somebody will after like the seventh or eighth time if they haven't bought it by then they're probably never going to buy it. And so just in like a marketing perspective for that you need to have fresh things coming especially like if you have the same things for years even if it's just making a different cover for it because things like that do go out of date, a new blurb, things, all those things do go out of date after a while. So especially making sure that everything is on market for right now, but also giving you content because the people who are reading you can only I mean it's really flattering if they are reading you like over and over and over again but they want something new from you and also you've evolved over the years you have more to offer once you have been doing this for a while so that's really important to show people that have read you oh look I'm actually getting better I promise I'm actually doing something that is even better than the last thing that I gave you hopefully that you liked you know.
How much do you attribute what you do on an everyday basis to your creativity output? Do you feel like that is just the spark that you've always needed?
I don't create as much every day as I would like to because I'm always, you know, doing things for Fiction Atlas or I'm, you know, doing things for the co-op or a lot of other things that have to be done. But when I do get to be creative and I'm trying better to find better habits to be able to at least be creative a certain amount of time every week. But when I do, it feels like it almost lifts a burden off of my chest. Like I finally feel this happiness that has been kind of caged for a while, I guess. Because I mean, I have to also do all the other things because you know you have to feed your kids, you have to pay your bills, you have to have internet to
Yeah.
like do all the other stuff to keep paying your bills. But when I do get to be creative, it feels wonderful.
Are you has age helped you in that respect too? Do you feel like wisdom adds a little bit to the creativity process?
Um, Maybe a little bit.
Mm.
Mostly, it's just that my kids are a little bit quieter now, and they don't need me every second of the day, so that helps. You know, they're now one just turned 14, and the other one just turned 10, so they're getting a lot more independent.
They don't want to be around mom as much, right?
The oldest one, I hardly see him anymore. He's like, "Hey, can we have food?" And that's about it. So,
That's funny. I would imagine probably words takes care of that in place of wisdom, right? Writing more words, you just get
yes,
naturally better.
yeah, the more you do of anything the better you're going to get at it and especially you know the more you practice also I try to read as much as possible too so and you
Yeah,
know
that's
not
so
just
cool.
craft books reading in your genre helps a lot too so
Are you encouraged by the way it's going for indies right now, or are you feeling like we're growing into a stagnation, or is there a regression happening? Where do you think we are as far as the community goes right now?
I think we're seeing tremendous growth, and I think it's going to continue to keep growing. I think it's wonderful that we're getting away from Amazon. A lot of us are going direct. A lot of us are going wide. Where people are finding all kinds of different ways where they don't have to rely on Bezos just to get by anymore. And I think breaking away from that and being more independent, because we are indie authors in the first place, that is wonderful. And I think it's going to really boost sales. There is a very big learning curve for some people, so it's not for everyone. But I think as more people do it, and as it becomes more streamlined, we're going to have more solutions for people to make it more kind of out of the box, like kind of like Draft to Digital, how they can help you get wide. We're going to have more things for that, for going direct, and more opportunities are going to pop up and be easier for people to kind of acquire and be able to participate in, regardless of the level of expertise that they have.
I might be dancing ahead a little bit here and creating a new topic for you for your marketing tip here, but I'm curious what you feel like January 19th is going to do for this industry when it looks like for all extents and purposes there will not be a TikTok available to North America.
Well, I'm hoping that doesn't happen. I think if it does happen, there will probably be a reversal. But also, right now, it's just for a ban on the app. So if you still have the app on your phone, it's still going to work for a while. You just won't be able to get
updates. You won't be able to create from it.
Yeah. So there'll still be ways to get on it and do certain things, but I don't think it's going to last. If it does for some reason last, then I think there are going to be a new platforms that pop up that'll take its place. Maybe Lemonade, maybe a couple of other things. I do not think it. Everybody says
you know the one that's going through my head right now. You know the one that's popping. Although I think it's pretty much dead.
Yeah.
But Snapchat is popping.
No, we're not going to Snapchat. I forbid it. But I don't think that. I don't think it's going to be as big of a problem as people think it is right now. I think that there will be a lot of pushback and something will happen with that, or something will come and take its place. I don't think we should go immediately to Instagram and everything owned by Zuckerberg. I would love to be off of Facebook, but I have too much business stuff going over there. But I don't see that Instagram being the place that everybody goes. I see a new platform probably either popping up or one that hasn't been around for very long, us adopting that if TikTok doesn't come back.
Do you think YouTube might benefit from this aspect?
If they can get shorts to work as well as TikTok does. TikTok has that unique algorithm, and it's so easy to use. I think that the interface being so easy is why it has done so well, because Reels and YouTube Shorts and anything like that is a little bit more clunky, and it doesn't work quite as expected like TikTok does, and that's why people use it more.
I suspect there's somebody out there who is right now clamoring at the bit to kind of hope for what's going to happen on January 19th to launch something new. I mean, it took what the folks at Blue Sky maybe a year after the Twitter fiasco, and I really feel like they had something in the works. They knew what was coming with Musk, and they had something developing right then and there anyway. And now of course it's become beneficial to them. So I feel like there might be something like that out there for TikTok users as well. Do you feel that too?
I'm sure there will be. I really don't think that short form video is going anywhere. There will be a new home for it if that doesn't, if TikTok ban doesn't get reversed. Right now, who knows what the orange man's going to do, but he says that he will take a look at it and maybe put it back. So who knows? If it's the only good thing he does, then oh well.
Well, I mean, based on the people he's hiring, one of them is the one who is leading the charge against canceling it to begin with. So I don't have that much faith in that aspect of it, but
who knows?
Anyway, we're getting too in the weeds there, but I'm curious what you thought of how people marketed there. Did you enjoy that, or do you feel like it just became a necessity?
I actually do like it. I felt like it was more community based, and there was a lot more fun aspects there than you normally see on other platforms. On other platforms, it's either artsy or really spammy. And I feel like on TikTok, there was lots of comedy ways to market yourself, and people respond very well to comedy, which is why authors found themselves being so prolific and being so making so much money on TikTok because people want to be entertained and it's very quick, so I think that's why it did so well.
That's another reason why I think YouTube's going to have some problems is because their monetization model is very difficult for shorts, and it doesn't lend itself like TikTok did. They're going to have to fix that if they want to become the thing, right? So I think that's what's going to happen there. But as far as like that aspect of things go, do you feel like that's the evolution we're headed towards marketing wise, or is there somewhere else you're looking at right now that you're trying to enhance to keep it fresh for yourself and your clients?
Right now the short form video is the best that I see out there. There are more book clubs coming up on places like Fable and Storygraph, and those are starting to get a little bit more popular as more people turn to reading than used to be out there. But video and images are always kind of going to be ahead as far as marketing goes because humans are such visual creatures to begin with. I am going to keep going to Blue Sky and trying that out because I am having lots more engagement over there than pretty much anywhere else on the internet right now. So that's
were you a big Twitter fan back in the day?
I was not really. I was on Twitter a long time ago. Like do you remember Twitter when you could actually put your own background up?
Yeah, sure.
I made one of those for Tom Felton one time. His music or whatever. He had a music page. And they had a contest, and I made one, and I won. And it was on there for a little while. So that is how old I am and how long I've been on Twitter. But I didn't, other than engaging like that, I didn't really do. I did some live tweets of some shows that I was watching, but I really only used it for marketing purposes. Like, here's a contest I'm running, or here's like a book I'm writing. I was not engaged over there the way I am.
Never did PitMad or anything like that?
No, I've never really been interested in being traditionally published, I guess. Right. I've always been wanted to be indies because I'm a control freak and I like the control.
Sure. I mean, as a publisher, though, I was wondering if you'd ever been involved in anything like that.
No, because mostly I do the anthologies. I don't want to have that much of a responsibility over other people. So,
Yeah, that makes sense. Anita says shorts on YouTube don't make money. Yeah, because the algorithm is terrible. I mean, the idea is they want you to get over 10 million hits on a short. So they're basically asking you to recycle your best. It's like the best of TikTok on the YouTube shorts is what I find.
And it's not very. It's almost everything I see, or in my experience, is not very. It's really low content things that are not. Low effort, I think that's what they call it. Low effort things get a lot more views.
Yeah, I think
you get all kinds of views on just like a meme.
Well, I think a lot of what shorts is what it's the misconception about TikTok. I mean, 99.9% of us use it on our phone, but I think YouTube is different. A lot of us don't use YouTube on our phone, so the way they have labeled shorts is they want it to be like TikTok where they bring you to your phone, and it just doesn't work when you're watching it on PC or watching it on your Mac, right? You're watching YouTube in a different convention, so it's very different. It's very hard to get around shorts in that respect, I think too. And Nina says I used to do the hashtag days, and oh my god,
a little bit.
A lot of TikTok people are on YouTube and Instagram as well. Yeah, because they could double their marketing because they already have the built-in aspect of it. I think that's part of it. And I think you have to diversify, right? That's a huge part of being a marketing person is diversifying, right?
Yeah, you need to be on different platforms, posting ideally different things on different days. You can recycle content, but try not to do everything at the same time all the time. Because, if people are following you on all three of them, they say it all at the same time, they kind of feel bombarded. So,
we started this conversation talking about how things are reciprocal. I find that marketing is probably the most cyclical thing of all, especially for authors, because when you at the end of the day, there was a time when Facebook parties were like the thing, right? The Facebook event parties, and then they came back for a little while, like just like a year ago, and
Yeah.
then they died again because people just realized how ineffectual they were, and then newsletters go through this cycle where for 3 years they're the most important thing you could have, and then they die, and then they come back in the next year, and it's interesting that that's the way that marketing goes for authors. Do you find that too?
I do. I do think newsletters are evergreen. That's my favorite thing that I will, that's the little soapbox I will get on. But I do feel that way. The parties, I used to love going to the parties. There was so much engagement. And the thing that killed those was Facebook and their algorithm and having to make you pay for engagement in groups and all kinds of things that just pretty much killed it. They don't, if they're not making a penny off of it, they don't want anybody to see it. So that's what killed that. I think people are starting to do more like Facebook lives and live parties and maybe TikTok lives and things like that to get together and do parties. But now I think everything's kind of went to special editions again. Everybody's doing Kickstarters and everybody's doing book boxes. And that is actually starting to be saturated now to the point that people, like I've been in the book box community for a while because I've a book collector. So I've been collecting spray edge books way before indies started getting into it. And now it's getting to the point where people if they don't want them from certain companies anymore, because now you can just walk into like Barnes and Noble or wherever and get them. They're all like that now. So it is a cyclic thing. There are fads that are going to be really popular and they're going to run their course, and you have to kind of try to figure out what's going to stay.
I also think that the thing that kills the Facebook party not only is the algorithm, that is very true, and that's probably the number one thing, but the number two thing I think is people just don't know how to do it right. People don't know how to engage.
Yeah.
It's not an hour where you get to spam people, and I think there's a lot of people who utilized it in an incorrect fashion, and that I think that kills a lot of that. I mean, I know that whenever I was in a Facebook party and there was a half hour of somebody doing that for a half hour, I was doing something else,
Yeah.
because it just, you have to learn how to do the convention if you're going to do it.
Yeah, you have to be able to engage with them in a way. So you have to have something like playing the games or doing something that gives them sort of benefit instead of saying, here, buy this book, buy this book, buy this book. Hey, I've got this book coming out. There needs to be some sort of engagement for them to be able to, again, make that human connection with you. So.
And I think that is also the power of the Facebook party, is that it's evergreen in a lot of respects, because people don't have to be there that moment to do it. They might have to be there after a certain period of time to win. I mean, we all got hip to the fact that nobody was there live. It was, an hour later they would come by, or 3 hours later, or even a couple days later they'd come by. So we would leave it up and say, okay, by this weekend we'll pick a winner, kind of thing, and so I think that also helps that idea too a little bit. I'm kind of clamoring for those to come back, if you can't tell, but
I always loved them. I hosted a lot of them. It was one of the things that I did with Fiction Atlas is I hosted parties for authors that didn't have time. We had a lot of fun. I used to do a Halloween party every year, and I used to take everybody.
I was part of one of those.
It was fun, but I would like them to come back too. Yeah. If we could get engagement, that'd be great.
So what are you learning about yourself writing wise that now that you've kind of dusted yourself off a little bit and given yourself some time to write? What are you learning about yourself a little bit now? Are you excited about where you're going? Are you nervous? Where are you at in terms of your own?
I have found that I probably have less confidence than I thought I was, because what I was talking about with Julia is like, I can write a marketing tip. I can sit down, as long as I have, just what the topic's going to be. I can sit down and just get on the keyboard and bash out 10,000 words or something on that. But I am a lot less confident when I'm writing a story because I'm such a perfectionist about it. And I don't feel as confident in my creativity as I do as in my knowledge of marketing. Like in that, I'm like, oh, I know this is how this goes. And I know this is and I feel very confident in it. But when I am writing something, I'm like, will they like this? Does this sound stupid? No. Is that even spelled right? And I'm backtracking. So, there's not as much confidence, and so I'm very much slower, and it's not as it's I don't know, it's not as fulfilling sometimes, and then sometimes I'll read and I'll go, damn, that's good. And then the next day I'll be like, no, that was not good at all. Wasn't that on an episode of Fringe one time? No.
That's funny. I love that aspect. Are you you said everything is character driven for you though. Are your characters coming to life a little bit in are they speaking to you differently than they did before when you were writing more prolifically?
I don't think so. I think the characters speak to me the same. I'm always been really good at dialogue and writing down dialogue. I have more problems with things like making sure that the directions are going correctly. Like everybody knows what's happening in the scene, and that nobody's doing something here that they shouldn't be doing. And
there's no Starbucks card and no Starbucks.
Like that. That's what the Game of Thrones writers should have been. I have more problems with stuff like that than I do, and like trying to make sure that my prose is not too purple, and that I have not used the same word 20,000 times.
So where are you at? Are we getting closer to seeing something being produced by?
I am hoping to have my first one out, the first part in the duology, out by March. That is my goal. I have about half of it written at this moment, but I also need to go back and do some more edits on it and try to figure out if I could plot. Like I said, I could give you more of a solid timeline, but I've been trying so hard to be able to plot, and I never can do it. It just ruins things for me. I think it's because I am so I have such a schedule with everything else that's the only part of me that I don't like to be scheduled. I don't like to have blocked out, I guess.
That makes a lot of sense. Yeah, no, I can totally relate to that. So tell me a little bit about it. I'm curious. Can you give us a little insight into what's about so that we can get people excited?
Yeah. So the story is called In the Kingdom of Dreams. It is a Sleeping Beauty retelling, and it is pretty much there are three main characters. Well, actually four if you count the fairy, I guess. I've got a short story also that I've written for like a prequel for this about the fairy and her life and why she is the way that she is, because I think every villain should have an origin story and you should be a little sympathetic to them.
Is this your future reader magnet that we're talking about?
Yeah, it is. So you have the main character who is a princess, just like Sleeping Beauty, and she is living, in the woods with her aunts and everything. But she also meets this character called Rook, who is actually working for the fairy, but she doesn't know it. And he's trying to teach her a way to fight this fairy and not have to, prick her finger on the spindle, just like Sleeping Beauty. And there's a lot more magic in this, and there's a lot more things going on in what I would call like a dream realm, because of course she's going to prick her finger and she's going to be, asleep, but I don't want her to have to not be able to fight. So I'm having her kind of fight the fairy in this dream realm. So he's kind of teaching her some mind things that are magic-y. And there's also a prince who is trying to come find her because he's been betrothed to her. But he's also looking for a cure for his kingdom because there has been a curse that has been put upon them by the fairy. So I'm kind of mixing up a lot of things from the story and doing them just a little bit differently. But I'm not going to push like a love triangle between the prince and Rook, this other character. I'm going to try to make her choose one and not do that whole Twilight thing with it. But I guess that's the gist of it. I'm really having fun writing the fairy. I have more fun writing the villains for some reason. I'm really having fun writing the fairy and the reader magnet for that, and why she is the way she is, why she doesn't trust humans, why she would curse a baby to begin with, so.
Yeah, well, I think villains just have a lot more character, right? They have a lot more to develop. So because you have to develop both the good and bad about villains. I think Yeah. All right, Miss Courtney, I'm doing this at the end of every show where you're going to pick five numbers for me between 1 and 50, and I have a corresponding question that ignites between that. So just go ahead and rattle off five numbers for me, and I will pick the questions out, and we'll answer them.
Okay, 17,
Okay.
1, 9, 42, and 8.
All right. So question number 17. What authors did you dislike at first but grew into?
Oh, okay. I wasn't that very much a fan of Dickens at first.
Oh,
And then I ended up being a super fan. I think it's just because I started reading. Started reading Oliver Twist when I was like 9, and it was not. It was too. There was too many words, too many wordy words at that time for a 9-year-old to be able to comprehend all of the more political things that are going on in the different stories. And so after I grew up, I was probably, I think, 17 when I started reading. Reading more of him. I read A Tale of Two Cities and absolutely loved it. And so after that, I kind of got into most of his other work. So
nice. Number one is a very popular one. This is one I've asked several times now, but that's okay. I'm very curious what your response will be, and that is, what literary pilgrimages have you gone on?
what like to the bookstore?
However you want to interpret it. The question's up
Okay.
for interpretation. So.
Okay, I've gone on some pilgrimages to read more books every year. Then sometimes that works out and sometimes it doesn't. One year I read 150, and
I relate to that. I relate to that hard.
This year I'm at like 35. It just depends, but
Anything you'd recommend?
Anything by V.E. Schwab or anything by Leigh Bardugo. V.E. Schwab is amazing. Almost every book she's ever written is just great, and they're all so different in genre and feel, but they all have this sort of, it's just some weird feeling to them. They're all a little bit out there, and I love her work.
Awesome. Did you ever consider, number 9 is, did you ever consider writing under a pen name?
I do write under a pen name, technically.
Technically.
But the only reason is because my name is so long. My name is so long that on my high school diploma, they abbreviated my middle name as Daniel instead of Danielle. So my name was Courtney Danielle Littleford. It was Courtney Daniel Littleford, and it still is on there. And so I wanted something that would fit on a book cover really well, because I was already creating book covers. I knew how important it was for the name to be legible and to be able to, fit it on there well. And so I didn't want to go with my middle initial, D, because then it would be CD Cannon. And I just thought of just CDs, like at some sort of DJ just throwing CDs everywhere out of a cannon, like a t-shirt cannon. And so that was like the visual I had. And I was like, that's not going to work. And so I went with L because Littleford is my maiden name. And I wanted to kind of keep that, with me. So I just went with CL Cannon.
See, I think that this exercise has just spoken to the person that I asked to do it, because every time I do this, I get a question that I think was really only meant for you to answer, and this could not have been the more perfect question to ask you. Seeing how what a big fan I am of the Indie Connections discovery of book covers. There is just something about the covers that you select, and I know that's part of your criteria and part of your process. Oftentimes you're just searching for indie books that match that subject matter, and sometimes it's a lot harder than it is. But you look into, if that's the case, a lot of really great book covers. So I'm curious, question number 42 is, what tattoo would you get? What book cover would you get as a tattoo?
Book cover as a tattoo? Okay.
It says book cover. I'm reading the question. So,
well, I want to say Six of Crows because I've already have
Oh.
like a desire to get a crow tattoo, and but also I'll
Well,
have
and it's
a
also your favorite book of all
yeah.
time, so.
And I also like Lord of the Rings, and I've been meaning to get a Tree of Gondor on like one side right
Ah.
here. And I'm trying to remember. There's probably an edition of Lord of the Rings with a Tree of Gondor on the front, so I mean that might work.
What is it about Six of Crows that you find is just spoke to you so much?
I love the team, it's the found family aspect because they're all outcasts. They're in a gang. They're trying to pull off an impossible heist, and I love the character relationships because just like I love writing character relationships, and that is a big thing for the way that I write. Something that I love is like discovering why a character did this and why they did that, and it's so multi-layered the way that Lee Bardugo has done the put those characters and made them work together, and the things that they have to overcome are so unique, and I just love it. It's like I've read it twice this year already, like the whole series, like back and forth. So I've probably read it at least 10 times since it came out.
Yeah, and it's no wonder you're a fan of Lord of the Rings then too, because Fellowship is all about the found family
Yeah.
aspect of what that is all about, right? So that's very cool. All right, number 8. Have you ever had reader's block?
Reader's block. I wouldn't say reader's block per se. I have gotten to a funk where I don't want to read anything new because, or I don't want to quite read something yet. I'll put off reading another book for a while because I kind of want to stay in the world that I was just in. Like when I read A Darker Shade of Magic by V.E. Schwab, that was such an immersive world, and it was so well done that I just kind of wanted to go, okay, I'm going to just read all the fan fiction I can find, and I'm going to look at all the fan art, and and maybe even read it again before I move on to something else. That's probably the closest that I can come to that.
Yeah, I'm previewing a little bit of this year in indies here, but this year for me, in terms of reading, has been about finishing series. Like I
Mhm.
have several that I finished this year, and the authors finished as well. A lot of series were at their end this year, and reading those, I found that I it just made me want to go back and reread the very first ones, and kind of see the evolution of the author a little bit, and kind of base a lot of what I'm reading off of that as well, and see how far they've come with the story and the storyline too. And so a lot of that for me is that when I don't want to read something new, that's what I gravitate toward.
Yeah.
Yeah. What is a book that you what book? I mean, obviously, it's probably Six of Crows is probably the one you've read the most. But other than Lord of the Rings and Six of Crows, is there another series or something that you've read a lot over the years?
Um, I've read I love Jane Austen, but I will probably say An Ember in the Ashes by Sabata here. I've read it probably at least 4 or 5 times. And I really love the characters in that, especially Helene. She's a character that a lot of people would find very cold, but when you finally get to know the reasons for the way that she acts, she kind of just breaks your heart. So I love that. I love the angst. I love having my heart broken and crying at the in this book. Something terrible happens to them. I'm like, yes, but no.
Put them through it. Let's go. Let's torture our characters, right? That's awesome. Well, Miss Cannon, I can't thank you enough for being here, for
Thank you,
doing
Paul.
this. You were the first person I asked to do this season, because I just find our hour very very powerful, and I really enjoy talking to you about it because you know in the context of when we speak, this is often how we communicate in chat. People, so I wanted to give people a little taste of that aspect of it, but in terms of just being able to have this conversation, I really appreciate it. Thank you so much for doing it. I really do appreciate it. I know
Thank
you
you
don't
very
do a
much for
lot of
having me.
these,
It's
so
great.
yeah. Tell everybody where they can learn more about the stuff, where they can follow you, so that they can get these books when they do come out, and obviously, where they can check out all the wonderful stuff you do for not just me, but for the entire community.
You can find all my stuff at my website below, which I'll never be able to point to, cocanon.net, or you can go to fictionatlas.com if you're an author, and you can find, or if you're a reader, you can go there and find our anthologies. But if you're an author, you can go there and find all of my marketing stuff, my one-on-one marketing, and the stuff that I do, like the group giveaways and things that we do for all the authors together combined. And I'm on all social media except for Snapchat and Twitter. I'm still on Twitter, but I don't post there anymore. It's just an archive. Go find me on Blue Sky, which is so much better. But yeah, that's where you can find me. I'm still on Goodreads. Sparingly, I'm going to try out Fable because Fable looks like it's really cool. They make you a little virtual bookshelf that I thought was nice. So it has Six of Crows on it. So.
Nice. Awesome. Well, everybody, thank you for joining us. Stick around here on Go Now. And in fact, probably has already just started, but hit the dice. Jessica Nettles is leading a group of cryptic soldiers through finding some cryptics out there. And it's a game that Bob Magoo created that we're running for the next couple hours. So go check that out. And remember that it's always time to go in now, and we'll see you next time. In fact, Bob Magoo will be my last guest of the 2024 for 21 grams on Friday. Good thing I got that in there. All right. Bye, everybody.